What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be giving my predictions for the Premier League season 25-26. Starting off at the bottom of the league, I have gone with Brentford. Now before all of you say, oh you're just being biased because you hate Brentford because it's all UVR, I will admit there's a bit of a level of bias here, but I genuinely am so confident in Brentford getting relegated. Now they may not actually finish bottom of the league, I think they're more likely to finish 18th or 19th, but they are the team I'm most confident about going down in the whole league. I mean, you just look at what's happened to them over the summer. They've lost the manager that took them up from the Championship and kept them in the Premier League for many years. They've lost their captain, they lost their best player and top scorer, their second top scorer, wasn't training with them for a while and is just so adamant he wants to go. Can't lie though, Vissa, I think it's great you're doing this at Brentford, but genuinely it's embarrassing. Like, how can you just refuse to train and refuse to play to a club that's made you, to a club that gives you money every week to kick a football around? We're going to ease that later because that's even worse, but it is really poor from Vissa, I can't lie. The guy they replaced their legendary manager with has never managed a game of football in his life. He's a set-piece coach who was Sheffield United set-piece coach the year they conceded over 100 goals, Sam. Like, why have they decided to give this guy the main job? He's one of the few staff members like Frank didn't take with him to Tottenham, and I'm all for internal promotion. I mean, it's how Thomas Frank got the main Brentford job. He was the assistant before, but he was at least the assistant manager, and he was more involved in day-to-day tactics and everything, and he also had managed before in the Denmark youth teams. In terms of signings, like, they're being okay. Coyote being made permanent, he's a good young player. A couple of other youngsters. Henderson's come in, good leader, will keep the levels high, but he's a completely different type of player from Norgard. He's not a destroyer defensive midfielder like Norgard is. He's much more now, at least, a deep line playmaker. Their starting 11 is still quite good, to be fair, but they just have no depth, and they've got a manager who I think is very much out of his depth as well. Now with 19th, I've gone with Burnley. Now I think Burnley will either have a good start and finish 20th, or have a bad start and finish 17th. I know that sounds a bit mad, but I'm going to explain. They have a very difficult start to the season. Apart from Sunderland and I guess maybe Man United, you'd expect them to get battered in most of the other games. Scott Parker threw his toys at the pram at Bournemouth. Yeah, everyone thought Bournemouth were going to finish bottom of the league. He got sacked and they ended up surviving fairly comfortably under O'Neill. If Burnley have a bad start, I can see him doing the same thing here. He throws his toys at the pram, they sack him, they bring in Sean Dyche and they survive. But they could have a good start. They keep him because they're like, yo, this guy's good. They give him a new contract, and it just all goes tumbling down because he isn't a very good manager. Losing Trafford is huge. He's an amazing goalkeeper. He's England's future #1. But they have replaced him fairly well with Dubravka, who has a lot of experience and has done well at Newcastle when called upon. As a QPR fan, I'm a big fan of Carl Walker, but Carl Walker to Burnley is the new Rio Ferdinand to QPR, man. He's just passed it. 2-year contract is always really risky. But they've lost Josh Brownhill, who scored 18 goals for them last season in the league. He was comfortably their top scorer. Some of their main signings are making permanent Jean Fleming and Jadon Anthony, who were already on loan last season. Can they make the step up? We'll have to wait and see. Brozier signed. He's far too unreliable in my opinion. Ugo Chukwu wasn't very good at Southampton last season either, but to be fair, he may be better in a more defensive system. I think Edwards is a good signing, to be fair. I do think Burnley will be okay defensively. They'll have a lot of 0-0s, they'll have a few 1-0 and 2-0 defeats, but they just won't win enough games because they can't score goals. Their second top scorer last season was Jean Fleming on 12. 12, bro, that's 12 in the Championship is not good enough, I'm sorry. And if Brozier's the guy they're relying on to make up the gap, it's long. In 18th, I've gone with Leeds United. They've made some strong signings, especially defensively. Perry, who was Lyon's first choice keeper, the same Lyon that got to the Europa League quarterfinals and qualified into the Europa League again by finishing 6th in Ligue 1. They desperately need to replace Meslier, and they've done so very well. They've improved their centre-back situation by signing Bijot and Bornau. Don't know how exactly you say his name, but they needed reinforcements in defence. Goodmanson's coming at left back, Sean Longstaff's coming to the midfield. These are all really good signings. Ellen Road also has a great atmosphere, and I think home games for them are going to be huge. Their wingers as well, very direct. Daniel James, Wilfred Nyono, haven't been great in the Premier League in the past, but Nyono was very young. But I think, in this counter-attacking team, they should be really good. And they have been linked with Alexander Mitrovic, who is supposedly about to get released from Saudi Arabia, which is a bit strange, especially considering the fact that his replacement is going to be Darwin Núñez, who is just absolutely pony. And if they were to get him, that would be a great signing. I think he would suit his wingers really well too. But Daniel Farke's the manager. He is a relegation magnet. and I just don't trust him at all. To be honest, from 16th to 20th, these 5 teams, anyone could stay up, anyone could go down. Like, it's very close in that patch. In 17th and just surviving, I've gone with Wolverhampton Wanderers. Over the last few seasons, Wolves have continuously lost their best player in the summer and then slowly crept downwards. 22-23, they finished 13th but lost Ruben Neves in the summer. They also lost Matheus Nunes that summer. I think he played 1 game and then went on strike, which again is really poor, to be honest. 23-24, they finished 14th but then lost Pedro Neto. And then last season they finished 16th and lost Aït-Nouri and Matheus Cunha. Now, to be fair, Wolves were really good without Cunha last season. Like, I think they won 5 in a row without him, which is kind of mad. But he has that ability to just score from absolutely nothing. So, for example, Wolves could be, playing Burnley. It's a tight game. It's 0-0. Burnley defending really well. Wolves can't break through. Matheus Cunha is the sort of player that could just pick up the ball and do something mad, score 1-0, Wolves win. But without him, is there anyone else that's capable of doing that? I mean, they have Bellegarde, who has a lot of flair and could do it, but I feel like just isn't as reliable as Cunha. He's obviously not as good, but he's still a good player, but not as good as Cunha. Keeping Strand Larsen is huge though, because he scored a lot of goals last season. He's a really good striker. I do feel like nearly all the goal scoring burden will be on him. Monetzi, who wears a number 5, how can he be a good goal scorer, man? They do still have a good team, like João Gomez and Andre in midfield. That's a good duo. We've also got Agbadou as well, who did look quite good last season. I mean, Arias, who's meant to be the Cunha replacement, looks really good creatively, but will he score the goals? I don't know. They've also signed a guy called Wolf, so I mean, that sounds like a match made in heaven, but I do think Wolves will be on the verge of relegation and could easily go down. In 16th, I've gone with the final newly promoted team, and that's obviously Sunderland. I really do like Regis Le Bris. Like last season, he was not afraid to be pragmatic, especially in the playoffs against Coventry. Sunderland didn't really have much of the ball. They weren't afraid of defending deep and hitting Coventry on the counter-attack. And that is something they're going to have to do a lot this season. They've made some really, really good signings. Like I talked about Leeds, Sunderland have also been incredible. But to be fair, they've had to be incredible in the market because they finished, 20 odd points behind Leeds and Burnley last season. So they definitely needed to improve the most out of the 3. But the way they've improved is really good. They've bought some young players who can obviously grow, but they've also bought some experienced players because their squad was already incredibly young. Diarra, who captained Strasbourg at times last season, great signing. Marc Guiu is a player that Barcelona wanted to keep. He's obviously stagnated a little bit because Chelsea didn't play him at all last season. If you're a young player and you want game time, why on earth would you go to Chelsea? That just makes no sense. But he's obviously got something about him. Faye's also been made permanent and he is a fantastic player, but I don't want to see him playing on the wing this season because I feel like he just doesn't have the physicality to play in the Premier League. As a 10, he'll be fantastic though. For the more experienced signings, Xhaka, he's obviously a winner. He's won the Bundesliga with Leverkusen. He almost went a whole season unbeaten. He's got Premier League experience with Arsenal. Reynaldo, who is a very good defensive left back. All the Atletico fans were really sad to see him go. He's been one of their most consistent players over the years. Maybe the last couple have been a bit injury hit, but defensively he's fantastic. And Sunderland need to be very solid defensively if they're going to survive. They've also brought in Adingra, who, he's a bit of a hit and miss player. I don't really rate him that highly, but in a counter-attacking system, he could be really good. Wilson Isidore, though, got a bit of beef with him because I remember last season when Sunderland were playing Burnley away, I bet on Sunderland to win and Wilson Isidore to score. Sunderland got a penalty in like the 80th minute, and I'm like, yes, my bet's going to come in. This is beautiful. And Trafford saved the penalty, and I was there like, oh my god, I can't believe what I've just seen. In the 97th minute, the last kick of the game, Sunderland get another penalty. Wilson Isidore steps up again and I'm there like, yes, the gods have answered my prayers. I'm going to win some money from betting for once. This is beautiful. And he missed again. Like, how do you miss 2 penalties in a match, bro? That's just embarrassing, man. But the Stadium Light atmosphere is going to be really, really good as well. They're a proper club, Sunderland. Their fixtures to start the season are quite favourable, so they do need to click straight away. Because if they struggle in their first 4 or 5 games, it could be a bit long. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the time where Derby back as well, man. It's going to be fireworks. And 15th, I've gone with Bournemouth. A bit low considering where they finished last season, but they've lost their whole defence, man. Replacing 1 defender is calm. Replacing 2 is manageable. Replacing 3 is a bit risky. Replacing 4 is borderline psychotic. It will take these players a while to gel together, and there's so many. And right back is their weakest position in their team as well. So it just feels a bit crazy from Bournemouth, man. To be fair, the players they've actually bought are very good. I think Petrovic is an upgrade on Ariza Balaga. Truffet is a very, very good replacement for Kerkez because he's a very similar style of player. Diakite, I'm not going to say I know a lot about him, new centre-back, but I'm guessing he's quite good. He's playing for Lille, who are a very decent French team. But they do ideally need another centre-back because I don't think Senesi is very good. And they probably do need a right back because, as I said, that's their weakest position in the whole team. And I don't think they'll win a game for like the first 2 months just because it'll take them all a while to gel. But their attack is still really, really strong. I mean, it looks like they could be losing Atara to Brentford, but he doesn't start anyway, so that's not really that deep. They've got El Junior Kroupi coming in as well from France. He did really well there. He's sort of like a 9.5 sort of player, versatile, and I think will complement their attack really nicely. And they've also got Andoni Iraola still, who is a fantastic manager. 14th, I've gone with Crystal Palace. They haven't really improved their squad. They'll likely lose at least one of Eze or Guehi. It's looking more like Eze because Liverpool don't really want to spend the money on Guehi. But Eze has been linked with both Arsenal and Tottenham, and I think it's certain that he goes. And that's the worst one because I think if Guehi leaves, you can easily replace him with Diomande, who's going to be much better than Guehi anyway. But Eze, fantastic player, obviously, you know, one of our own. And I really do hope he goes, by the way, because I don't really like Palace and we need the money. And he also deserves to be playing in the Champions League. But like, how can they really replace him? Like, I think Roman Essa is going to have a much better season this time. He will hopefully play more games. And you can obviously move Sarr to the left, put him on the right, and that will be decent, but Eze is a top-class player, do you know what I mean? They've got European football, and I know it's only the Conference League, but they're going to have to be travelling a lot, and it's their first time in Europe in, you know, how many years? There isn't a whole lot of depth, but they will likely be keeping Mateta and Wharton, which is huge. And most of all, they've got a fantastic manager in Oliver Glasner. If Bayern Munich were, for example, to sack Kompany through the season, which I think is very possible, Glasner will be their first choice. And I mean, he's obviously going to go, ain't he? Like, that would be a fantastic move for him. It'd be great for Bayern Munich. Like, this is the guy who's won your first trophy ever, yeah? And you haven't backed him at all, bro. Like, what are you doing, Parish, man? Like, your club isn't able to compete in the Europa League because you can't read your emails and how you're not backing your manager, who is the greatest your club's ever had. Like, what are you doing? 13th, I've gone with Fulham. I mean, they haven't signed anyone, but they haven't really lost anyone that big yet. Muniz could be leaving, which could be a bit of a problem, but Mitrovic could return. I mentioned him obviously being linked with Leeds. Well, I don't see why Fulham wouldn't just take him back because, I mean, like I said, Muniz is leaving potentially. Raul Jimenez is now 34 years old. They need a new striker, ideally probably 2 strikers. Obviously, Mitrovic knows the club. He was a former captain. He scored a lot of goals for him. Why not just bring him back on a free transfer? Like, also, Fulham are just the sort of club that would just buy a random player out of nowhere because they're Fulham and it's a really nice area to live, so people will just want to move there. But they also have a top-class manager in Marco Silva, who hopefully will be leaving him soon, but yeah, they still have him right now. In 12th, I've gone with West Ham United. I think selling Kudus was a good decision because although he is a fantastic player, they can't really use him to his strengths because their club captain and best player, Jarrod Bowen, plays in his position. And Bowen is just better than Kudus. I think Diouf looks like a really good fit for the team. Proper energetic left back, which they definitely need. And they've got Wan-Bissaka on the right, they've now got Diouf on the left. Walker-Peters is a great free transfer, can cover both left back and right back. Hermanson, decent transfer too, although I don't think he's a huge upgrade on Areola, if he is one at all. Callum Wilson is a weird one though, because he's 33, he's injury prone. He didn't score a goal last season. Obviously, if you can keep him fit, he will score goals. But the problem is their other main striker, Nicholas Füllkrug, is very injury prone and is old, but he will score goals if he can stay fit. Will either of them stay fit? We'll have to wait and see. But if they don't, West Ham will finish a lot lower than this. They'll probably be the team that finished 15th or 16th. I also think their midfield may not have the legs because like Ward-Prowse, he's never really been a physical player. Souček is, to be fair, but he's getting on now, ain't he? However, they will have a Paqueta without any betting charges, and that will almost be like a new signing. Because before this cloud was put over his head, he was a £100 million player. You know, Man City were willing to pay 100 mil for him because he was that good. So if you can return to that form with Jarrod Bowen, with Aaron Wan-Bissaka, West Ham have a really good side. Especially when you consider they've got some really good young players coming through, like George Murphy and Potts as well, who both did really well in the Championship last season on loan at Bristol City and Portsmouth respectively. They've also got Ollie Scholes, who played a few games last season as well. And also, I do believe in Graham Potter. You know, he's a bit of a polarising one, because I feel like a lot of people don't like him anymore. They all think he's a bit shit, but I think he's good, and I'm hoping that he'll prove me right. Now, I think I mentioned this, but I think the teams that are predicted from 20th to 16th could finish anywhere in that order. You know, Sunderland could be in 20th, Brentford could be in 16th. I think any of the teams that are predicted from 15th to 12th could finish anywhere in that order. Like Crystal Palace could be in 12th, West Ham could be in 15th. This is a big segment here, but I think 11th to 5th could be any of these teams I'm about to mention, which sounds crazy because that's a lot of teams, but I do think it's very tight. And in 11th, I have gone with Nottingham Forest. I can't understand why I've put them this low, because I think their team is really good, but I just don't know if they can finish above any of the teams I've put above them. Does that make sense? Their squad is still really good. Losing Elanga will hurt, but they have replaced him well with Ndoye. We've also signed Igor Jesus and Jai Cunha from Botafogo. And Hutchinson has supposedly had a deal agreed, so that's another right winger. Calimundo has supposedly had a deal agreed, as has McAtee. That's, you know, really strong reinforcements. That attack has just got even better, man. These are genuinely really good signings, especially when you consider the fact that Morgan Gibbs are almost left and will probably leave next season, so McAtee can come in, you know, adapt to the team and take over fully next season if Gibbs White does go. Chris Wood is obviously getting on and was a bit poor towards the back end of last season, so they probably need a striker replacement. And Calimundo got 17 goals in the French top flight last season, so he's really good. But the problem is Forest were fanned out a little bit towards the back end of last season because they like to play on the counter. The teams realised if we sit back against them, they can't really do anything. And this season they're going to be playing twice a week, which means that they have less time to focus on opponents, which means that they're less likely to be able to break those sorts of teams down. But they've kept almost all their players, other than Elanga, like, you know, Murillo's still there, Milenkovic, Elliot Anderson, Gibbs White, Callum Hudson-Odoi. They will need Sels and Aina to play like they did last season though. And I think they will go far in the Europa League. They are my second favourites to win the whole thing, behind Aston Villa. If they can avoid them until like the final, it'll be a beautiful journey. But again, they could just meet them in the last 16 and get knocked out. And in which case they will probably finish a bit higher in the league. But there are a lot of people that are saying, oh, they're going to go back to, like, you know, being in a relegation fight. Like, there's just, some people are just stupid, honestly, man. You might not like Marinakis, cool, but he is a great owner. Let's not kid ourselves, man. If he was your owner, you would absolutely love him. In 10th, I've gone with Everton. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will say this is quite high because most of the last few years they've been battling relegation. Last year though, they finished 13th and their window has been fantastic. They addressed their weakest position in the squad, which was striker and left back, by signing Tiana Barry and Adam Asnou, two very good young players. But they've also added Jack Grealish, Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, and Alcaraz's deal has been made permanent as well. So that's three really strong midfielders. They could still sign Tyler Dibbling, but they also got rid of a lot of just dead players like Dominic Calvert-Lewin and obviously all their loans. Although with that being said, their first game is against Leeds, who will have both Jack Harrison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and it would just be so Everton if they were to lose 1-0 from a Jack Harrison cross and a Dominic Calvert-Lewin header. But their new owners have been absolutely fantastic, man. Moving into a new stadium is a bit, you know, it's a bit of an unknown because it could go really well, a new start, a fresh beginning, but it could also go really badly because you say goodbye to your home, a legendary stadium like Goodison Park, to move to a new stadium, and the atmosphere maybe doesn't carry over. But with the way their stadium looks and has been built, they should be able to carry it over. I mean, their new stadium looks really nice and looks like an actual football stadium, unlike the London Stadium, for example. But they've also got David Moyes, who inherited a similar situation at West Ham, where he came in when they were battling relegation, kept them up fairly comfortably, and then took them into Europe 3 years in a row and won a trophy. And I don't see why he can't do the same here with Everton. Like, I know I've put them in 10th, but they could genuinely finish a lot higher than this if they were to keep everyone fit. And that is a bit of a problem because both Garner, Patterson, very injury prone. Jared Branthwaite is going to be injured to start the season, which means Michael Keane will likely be playing at centre back. And that is a problem because he is very error prone. They need to sign at least one defender, ideally two, a centre back and a right back. But they need to get someone in those positions. If they can do that and still get Dibbling in, you could argue they've had the perfect window. Also, Tarkowski got injured at the back end of last season. He was almost ever present for them over the last couple of years. And with him getting on, an injury could be really bad news because it could be like the start of a domino effect and he just continuously gets injured. Hopefully that's not the case. Asnou and Barry, I mentioned them. I think they're great signings, but they could take a little while to adapt. And obviously Mikalenko, I think, is far too inconsistent. Same with Beto, who is also injury prone. As backups, they're great, but hopefully Barry and Asnu can adapt really quickly, because I do want Everton to do well. I think they deserve it. They're, again, a proper club, got great support, and it would just be nice for them to have something to celebrate rather than looking down the table all the time. In ninth, I've gone with Aston Villa. I know this is really low because they've been really good the last few seasons. Even with Europe, they finished well in the Premier League. They did lose Rashford and Asensio off their loans, and I don't rate either of them particularly highly, especially not Asensio. I think he actually held them back. But they are players that added numbers to the squad. I think selling Ramsey is actually a big loss for Villa. You know, he's a homegrown player. He's one of their own. And I actually think he did well last season when I watched him. Him and Rodgers have a great connection. But PSR is just so horrible, man. It needs to be reworked because this is not what football should be about. The homegrown players, the boys from the city, should be what the team is built around, not sold off so you can improve other areas, man. It's just horrible. I'm a bit surprised they didn't go in for Grealish because he could have replaced Ramsey, kind of. You know, he's a similar sort of player. His role at Man City has been similar to Ramsey's role at Villa over the last couple of years. But I think they'll win the Europa League. You know, they've got Unai Emery, who is Mr. Europa League. He will win that competition. And I think that will be why they do a bit worse in the Premier League, because I think they'll be like 6th in March, but then they'll obviously have to realise, okay, we don't have the biggest squad in the world. We need to prioritise one or the other. We can win the Europa League and get into the Champions League that way. Let's do that because we also get a trophy. And they'll do that, but they'll fall off a bit in the Premier League and finish 9th. Goussand, I don't really know how you say his name, but he will be a good signing, a good young French player. And Marlon will play a lot more this season too. But defensively, I don't think they're very good. Konsa is fantastic. Like, he is one of the most underrated players in the league. They right back or centre back as well. But the other centre backs aren't amazing. I think Mings is a bit meh. Pau Torres, awful defensively. Great with the ball at his feet, but that's not what a centre-back's meant to do, man. Like, do you know what I mean? A centre-back should first and foremost be a good defender. And the midfield is really, really good. Like Onana, Kamara, Tielemans, McKinney even. Fantastic. But, well, the first three at least can really struggle with injuries. So, yeah, it could be a bit of a battle to keep everyone fit. 8th, I've gone with Man United, and I think this would be an awful finish for them considering the amount of money they've spent again. They have made some fantastic additions. Like, Mbomo and Cunha both scored a tremendous amount of goals last season. So they should be a lot more threatening in front of goal. Sesko's come in as well. I think he's a massive overpay. He has potential, yes, but Man United isn't the club you want to go to if you want to fulfill your potential. I also think Amorim is just a bit too tactically stubborn. Like, he's persisting with a 3-4-3 all the time, even though the personnel they have doesn't really suit that. Like, if he is going to play this, they need a proper box-to-box midfielder, which they still haven't got. Yes, they've been linked with Belieber, but he's going to cost another 100 mil, and Man United should not be able to pay 100 mil for another player, considering the tremendous amount of money they've already spent this season and over the last few years. They were sacking Dinley's because they're supposedly broke. How can he splash all this cash? They also still don't have a right wing back. Like, yes, Diallo can play there, and he has played there, but he's left-footed. He's not going to hold width. And he is more of a right 10 than he is a right wing back. So just go and sign him, because Mazraoui, again, he's not a right wing back. He's decent as a fullback, but he wants to invert. In the 3-4-3, surely the wing back's main priority is just going up and down the wing. I just feel like teams aren't afraid of them anymore. Like, the amount of home games they lost last season was genuinely embarrassing. And I just can't really see that changing too much unless Amorim does become more tactically flexible. In 7th, I've gone with the Europa League winners, Tottenham Hotspur. The most important signing that they made is Thomas Frank, because he is so much better than Postecoglou. Like, yes, he won the Europa League, but he finished 17th. And the Europa League is nowadays a fairly easy competition to win if you're an English team, because you just spend so much more money than the other teams in it, especially if you're one of the big 6. The signings they have made so far have been really good. Like Palhinha, brilliant addition. He's a proper Thomas Frank sort of midfielder, a no-nonsense number 6. You know, he will definitely improve them so much defensively. He may not be flashy on the ball, but not everyone needs to be flashy on the ball. Kudus as well, they finally have a left-footed attacker, and under Frank they will be so much better defensively, man, especially with Palhinha coming in. And how fluid Thomas Frank is. He'll play 5-3-2 in some games, he'll play a 4-2-3-1 in others. He's just so adaptable, and that is why I rate him so highly. But James Maddison, man, he would have been unbelievable under Thomas Frank, playing in that damn squad role. He's one of my favourite players in the league, and the fact that he's done his ACL and is going to miss the most of the season is just so sad, man, because he just can't catch a break with injuries. He's such a talented player, but I'm so sad, man. Like, genuinely, get well soon, Madders. Hopefully we'll see you on the pitch sooner rather than later. Other than Maddison, there's no other proper creators in the team. I guess you could argue Kulusevski, but he's also injured. for probably a few months. But I just don't think the Tottenham attack right now is good enough. Like, apart from Kudus and Johnson, if he's used in a certain way, everyone else is just not good enough. Like, Solanke's dog shit. Tel, Odobert, they're young, yes, but they're just not up to their standard, at least not right now. I guess you could argue Kulusevski again, but I see him as more of a midfielder. Tottenham have been linked with both Savinho and Eze. If they were to sign both, I would put them at least one place higher. I think they will get at least one. In sixth, I've gone with Brighton. Now, you might think this is quite high. I don't think it really is. They finished 8th last season and they weren't far away from 6th. And their record without Lewis Dunk was unbelievably good. Like, their form fell apart a little bit when he came back, and when he got dropped, it went back to being really good. And now they've signed Diego Coppola, who was statistically one of the best young defenders in Europe last season, and Buscagli, who's also centre-back. Dunk shouldn't need to play anymore. They signed a Kuiper, who can be maybe a little bit suspect defensively, but he could also provide some very good attacking moments. Selling João Pedro was great business because he's a paedophile and he's just not very good. He scored like 5 non-penalty goals or something shit like that last season. So to get the amount of money they did for him is phenomenal, especially when they've got so many players at the club already that are just so much better than him, like Facundo Buonanotte. And if they keep him, oh, they are going to be cooking, man, because he is so good. If he does leave though, because he has been linked with Borussia Dortmund, I would probably put Brighton in 8th, maybe even 9th. That is how much I believe in this kid, man. He is going to be phenomenal. It was sad to see Ferguson leave, but he hasn't really developed as much as we hoped he would. I would have liked to see him and Buonanotte linking up, man. Unfortunately, it looks like I will never see that happen. And Fabian Hurst, I think, is a really good young manager. He's shown a lot of that ability last season after getting slapped up by Nottingham Forest. You know, he's gone more direct. And I think their signings also show that they're willing to play a different sort of way. They're not just going to play woke ball, you know, they'll be defensive if they have to. And they've got a lot of good players at their club that are very versatile. Now, the top 5 are the same as the 5 from last season. Have I predicted them in the same order? Well, I have in 5th because I've got Newcastle. Eddie Howe, my favourite manager in the world. I absolutely adore him, but he has been failed in this transfer window. I think Thiaw is a great signing. He's a good ball-playing defender, can have a bit of a mistake in him, but his passing accuracy is amongst the best in Europe, and I mean, that's what Fabian Schär does, you know. It's a great succession plan. Ramsdale, a bit of a mess signing. Like, is he that much better than Pope? Not really. Newcastle just try and go and get Donnarumma because Man City have signed Trafford, so why do they need him as well? Do you know what I mean? Just go and get it done, Newcastle, or do something, man, please. I do think Jacob Ramsey, if it does obviously go through, is an unbelievably good signing, because although it is a bit of money, they've needed a midfielder that can play in the pockets for years. I've called for a number 10 sort of player for many years for Newcastle, because their midfield, fantastic against the high pressing teams, but against the low blocks can really struggle. And Jacob Ramsey is someone that can play in between the lines, receive the ball on the half turn, and is more creative than what they currently have. I know he's played on the left wing mainly at Villa, but I think he will play more as a midfielder at Newcastle, and that is where I think his best position is. Elanga is a great player, I do really like him, but I don't think he is stylistically the best fit for Newcastle. He is an upgrade on Murphy, who was really good last season, but they needed a left footer in that attack, man, because they have no left footers in the midfield or the attack, and that is also part of the reason why low block teams have success against them, because no one can play in the inside on that channel. I think both Mbeumo and Kudus would have been better, but Elanga is still a very good player. And against the teams that do press high or want to have the ball a lot, they're going to be even more dangerous with Elanga in the team. But Isak, I said I would mention him when we talked about Vissa. I cannot believe this guy, man. He was one of my favourite players in the whole world. This is so embarrassing, man. You are a clown, Alexander, man. What are you doing, bro? How can you down tools, refuse to train, refuse to play to a club that's paying you hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, to a club and a manager that made you the player you are today? You're in the Champions League, for God's sake. You know, it's not like Newcastle had a horrible season, you scored 30 goals and you're like, well, I'm too good for this. Nah, you just finished in the Champions League. I can understand wanting to leave to go to another club, but refusing to play, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting behaviour. I don't think he'll leave, because I don't think anyone will match Newcastle's valuation of him, and he'll have to come back at some point this season. Newcastle do still need a backup left back and a backup number 6, in my opinion. But I mean, when I mean backup number 6, I don't mean a Tonali-like player. I mean a more defensive player. Like, I mean, they don't have to be as good as Tonali on the ball, because he's incredible, man. Genuinely one of the best players in the league. But someone like a João Palhinha sort of player, you know, just a proper defensive midfielder. I would like to see him sign one of them, and they also probably do need a striker, especially if Isak does leave. Now in fourth, I've gone with Chelsea. I think this is probably the most secure position. Like, I think most people will have Chelsea fourth. All the other positions are a bit like all over the place, but Chelsea fourth seems to be very consistent. They have spent a lot of money again, but they do have a good squad. I mentioned earlier about João Pedro, horrible signing. He's a paedophile, why do you want him? The Lap is great though. They finally have a backup for Caicedo as well, which is huge. Jiro Hato, a great signing, can play left back or right centre back. You may need to come into the team sooner than expected though because of Colwell's injury. They're still in talks with Xavi Simons. I'm surprised that deal hasn't been officially done yet. But I don't understand why they haven't bought a goalkeeper with all this money that they spent. Like, Maignan was available, but they didn't want to sign him over 5 mil. Like, he's better than Sanchez, just get him in, man, because that is the problem position. He's obviously also older, which means that he won't block the development of Mike Penders when he's eventually ready to come through. I mean, they won the Club World Cup, and I'm sorry, but no one cares, bro. No one's ever cared about the Club World Cup. I don't know why Chelsea fans act like this is a huge competition. No one cares, right? All it means is that they've started their pre-season later than everyone else, which means it could take them a bit of a while to get going. I mean, I do think they could, and they really should challenge for the league given the amount of money they've spent over the last few years. I just think that they aren't strong enough defensively, and also just don't trust Maresca at all. The squad is still very young, and I don't know why they want to sign Garnacho. Yes, he's young and he has potential, but he is dressing room poison. And when you've got so many young players who are impressionable, signing him is just awful, man. He will be an awful influence on the youngsters. But yeah, on Maresca, he sacrifices Caicedo and Palmer to get more of Enzo Fernandez, and that's just stupid to me because Enzo Fernandez is nowhere near as good as the other two. And if you just sacrificed him, you can get even more out of Cole Palmer, you get even more out of Caicedo. Play Andre Santos there instead, or Lavia, and Chelsea are a much stronger side. Top three is so tough to call. Any of them could win the league. And in third, probably going to be unpopular, I've gone with Liverpool. It would be a poor finish considering the amount of money they've spent and the fact they won the league last season. But Ekitike is a great signing. He's a brilliant all-round forward. He does need a bit of work on his finishing because he did underperform his XG last season, but he is still young, so that will come. Vert's one of my favourite players. Brilliant signing, although they spent a lot of money on him as well. They finally have a proper creative midfielder. He's a proper number 10, man. Just love watching him. Carcas is another brilliant signing. He's like prime Robertson. He's solid defensively. He can get up and down that wing, and he's got a great cross on him. Frimpong, I'm not sure about him because he is very attacking, and that will mean he'll get up the wing and will allow Salah to play in more central areas, which means his output could increase, despite the fact that he is now a year older. But the negative about Frimpong is that he is like a winger and he'll be up the pitch, which means there'll be a huge hole behind him. And that hole will have to be cleared by Konate, who is very erratic, and Van Dijk, who is now 34 years of age and will definitely start losing his pace soon. If you're going to play this attacking, you have to have a destroyer type number 6, like João Palhinha, who I've mentioned a lot in this video. Gravenberch has done a brilliant job as a defensive midfielder, but he isn't a defensive midfielder, and he's certainly not a destroyer type defensive midfielder. So to play like this is so risky, man. They're going to be brilliant to watch for a neutral. Also, their centre-back depth is just not great. Like, Konate is very injury prone. Van Dijk's also had injury problems in the past, and he is getting on now. Joe Gomez is always injured. They have just signed Leone, who is a young Italian defender. I'm not going to say I know a lot about him, but everyone seems to think he is very promising. So, good signing. And obviously to learn under Van Dijk is going to help him a lot. But is he ready to step in right now? I don't know. They should just pay the money for Guehi. They don't even need Isak, man. He's going to cost 150 mil. You just signed Ekitike. You don't need Isak as well. Just go and sign a cheap backup striker. Go and get Witsel, yeah, for 30 mil, 40 mil, whatever they want. Yeah, buy Guehi for 45 mil, and then you've got 70 mil left over. Yeah, you can spend that on a proper defensive midfielder. I just don't think the team's very balanced right now. And I also don't think that they will get the amount of luck with refereeing decisions as they did last season. They were so lucky last season. I'll be so real with you, man. Now it's the top two, Manchester City or Arsenal. Who will win the league? Will it be Manchester City for the 5th time in 6 years, for the 7th time in 9 years? Or will it be Arsenal for the first time in over 20? In second place, I have gone with Manchester City. They have made some unbelievably good signings. Reinders, who solves their midfield issues really well. Cherki, who solves their creative issues really well. Great signings. However, letting Kevin De Bruyne go, I think, is really stupid because, yes, he's not as fit as he used to be, but he's still one of the best players in the world. and he could teach Cherki so much, man. Like, genuinely, Cherki could become the best player in the world if Kevin De Bruyne was able to tutor him for one season. I think all three of them, though, could be in contention for signing of the season, because I think they all just solve the issues that Manchester City had last season. Also on Kevin De Bruyne, man, like, Pep Guardiola tried his best to throw De Bruyne under the bus last season, man. You know, the way he set the teams up, he's had De Bruyne up front with Gundogan behind him sometimes, with, you know, Bernardo Silva and Foden as his wingers, like, just stupid stuff like that to try and make De Bruyne seem washed, and De Bruyne still performed to such high standards. Like, Pep Guardiola, you are a disgrace, man. I don't care. Fuck you, you stupid bold fraud. Anyway, Trafford's a great signing. He should be the number one unless Donnarumma comes in. I think if he is utilised correctly, Jeremy Doku is going to be unbelievable, and he'll get 20 plus goals and assists in the league. With Aït-Nouri there, who will provide overlaps for him, which will allow Doku to play more centrally, I can't wait, man. I think he's going to be fantastic. I think Manchester City probably have the strongest 11 in the league if you were to put all their best players in the team right now. But I just don't trust Pep Guardiola at all. But Manchester City, for me, just haven't sold enough deadwood. Why is Gundogan still there? Kovacic, I know he's injured, but he needs to be sold as soon as possible. Akanji, John Stones, Ortega, even Ederson. Bernardo Silva's been made captain now, which means he'll play a lot of minutes. This is really bad news for Man City, because, you know, you could argue, oh, it's just nice to have a bit of extra depth. They're not going to be using depth. They will start a lot of them, you know, because Pep Guardiola is washed. He's far too sentimental. He'll continue to play Gundogan instead of Gonzalez or Reinders because he's just stupid. He'll continue playing Akanji over Kusanov, and for some reason. He'd probably bench Cherki for Bernardo Silva and Foden, which is just, again, incredibly stupid. But for some reason, he happily let the best player in the club's history go. And he also let Aguero go a few years ago without, you know, any real concern. Like, if Man City shifted on all that deadwood I mentioned, and they played an 11 of Trafford, Nunes, Kusanov, Gvardiol, Aït-Nouri, or you could argue maybe Kusanov right back, Diaz centre back. That's fine as well. Yeah, with a midfield of Rodri, if he was fit, obviously. If he's not, then Gonzalez can play there, no problem. And Reinders. You still got Nico O'Reilly in there as well as backup. An attacking midfield three of Cherki, Marmoush, Doku, Haaland. Obviously, Maxi is also probably going to be sold to Nottingham Forest, but you've still got Oscar Bob. You know, Savinho is still currently there if Tottenham don't match the valuation. Like, that is such a strong squad, but you just know Gundogan's going to play every game if he's still there, bro. And it's just like, why? He should be 5th choice midfielder. Maybe even worse than that. There's probably someone else in the academy that's better than him now. But that's the reason why I don't think Manchester City win the league. Pep Guardiola's sentimentalism will hold Manchester City back. And at the top of the table, I've obviously gone with Arsenal. I think their team's improved massively over the summer. Zubimendi is unreal. He will be one of the signings of the season as well. He complements Rice perfectly, you know. He's a proper defensive midfielder, proper deep line playmaker. He will allow Rice to fully play as a box-to-box midfielder. He can get further forward because Zubimendi has the legs to defend counter-attacks. Partey and Jorginho over the last couple of years have not been able to do that effectively. Genuinely, I think Declan Rice gets more than 20 goals and assists in the Premier League this season. You can hold me to that. I'll happily do a forfeit if he doesn't. That's how confident I am in his abilities. Some people are concerned over Gyökeres's ability to adapt to the Premier League. Mikel Merino got so many chances last season. Yeah, he scored like 7 goals in that spell as a striker. There'll be no problem for Gyökeres, man. Arsenal create so many chances. He will be very good. I think Madueke is also a great signing. I've made a video on him already, but I haven't uploaded it yet, so hopefully I'll do that soon. They finally have a Saka backup. He can also obviously play on the left wing, although I hope they don't do that because he's just a lot better on the right. And I think they should sign Rafael Leao on the left wing. If they do that, they have the best 11 in the Premier League, man. I mean, Raya, Timber, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Lubiskelly, Zubimendi, Rice, Odegaard, Saka, Gyökeres, Leao. That is a fantastic side. Very balanced. You've got a bit of everything in there. And Leao just adds another goal threat because Martinelli is far too inconsistent with decision making. Trossard isn't amazing when he starts. Madueke, in my opinion, better on the right. Left wing is a bit of a priority position in my opinion, and although Eze is a fantastic player, at least in this Arsenal team, I think he'd be much better as a 10 than he would be as a left winger. Signing Mosquera has only further improved their defence, and with the amount of depth they now have, they should not hopefully have an injury crisis like they did last season, you know, because they will hopefully rotate their team a bit more because they actually have the players that are capable of coming in and deputising for the main players. And also, you got to assume that there's no way the referees can be as bad as they were last season towards Arsenal, because they were getting red cards for nothing. They're getting penalty calls against them for nothing. Do you know what I mean? It was crazy. Hopefully the refs are fair to them this season, and if they are, I think they win the league. But it really is now or never for Arsenal. They can't finish second again, man. I'm going to do some player awards now. Player of the year, I think, will be Declan Rice, because I predict Arsenal to win the league. Young player of the year, I'm going with Ryan Cherky. I think Salah will win the Golden Boot. Saka will get the most assists. Raya will keep the most clean sheets. Manager of the year, I have gone with Regis Lebris, just because I think keeping Sunderland up would be a massive achievement. The other competitions, I'll run through them quickly as well. Carabao Cup, I have gone with Tottenham Hotspur. I think they will win another trophy, and Thomas Frank will prove that Ange Postecoglou isn't anything special. The FA Cup will be Manchester City. They're not going to go another season trophyless. Conference League, I've gone with Crystal Palace unless Glasner leaves. Europa League, obviously I've gone with Aston Villa because I've got Unai Emery. And the Champions League, I was about to say Newcastle there, man. I feel like Newcastle could really cook. That might be a bit far though, winning the whole thing, you know, but I do think they'll do well. Arsenal as well, I think they'll do well, but I don't think they'll win both Champions League and the Premier League. If they were to lose out in the Premier League, I would back them to win the Champions League. But I'm going to say that the Champions League will be won and retained by Paris Saint-Germain. They're going to do it again. They've improved their squad with Zabarni. They need to sign a more physical midfielder. Just go and sign Mateta as well, man. And then they're set. They've got everything in that team. But yeah, those are my predictions. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you soon for another video.